So I'm Christina Arabolis, and you are?
I'm Robert.
And we are having a heart-to-heart conversation about life.
About whatever you want to. That's
Sure.
what makes it heart to heart.
That is true. That is true. Whatever's on our mind and our hearts at the moment.
What was your idea? Because this was kind of your idea for the heart to heart little talk, little chat we're going to share.
It just came to me that this sort of energy is needed. That two people that have unique perspectives on life, things that are happening in life, just in general, and then also on a political spectrum, that we can maybe offer a different sort of perspective, kind of throw it in the mix of what's already out there. And I thought that there could be some value in what we have to say. So here's my story, and I think you might find this really interesting. So in my old house, I was the one that was in charge of decorating, because my ex-husband, or my husband at the time, I should say, wasn't really interested in that kind of thing. He wasn't interested in picking things out and buying things and purchasing things for the home. So I had 100% power to do what I want in terms of that. So I did. I went out and I bought things for my house that I liked, that resonated with me. And I bought pictures and prints and paintings and whatnot and put them all around the house. And not really recognizing or paying really much attention to what I picked, I just purchased things randomly. And as I was in this process of awakening, one of the things that came to me was that the things that we pick on a subconscious level is basically what we're feeling inside of ourselves. And I didn't realize that. So with fresh eyes, I took a look at what I purchased for my home. And one of the things that I realized was most of the pictures that I had picked were of a woman and children, or just children. It was never a man and a woman and children. It was just a woman and children. For instance, I had this big print that I picked out that I had over my couch. And this picture just had the back of a woman holding the hands of two children walking along a garden path. And that was huge. It was right over my couch. And I have to be honest, I can't even tell you how many prints at the time to pick that one out. And everywhere in my house, I had just pictures of women by themselves or just children by themselves. I did purchase a print that had a couple on it in that one room that I shared with my husband at the time. So it was a picture of a man and a woman on a balcony. And I didn't realize that, I think on a deep level subconsciously, that in a way, it was almost like I didn't deserve love, because that male figure was iced out of everything that I had purchased. And what really brought it home for me was I had this one print in my bathroom that was just hanging in my bathroom. And it was a boy sitting on the ground crying over a broken wagon, literally just crying. And I don't know why, I don't know why that resonated with me. Like I said, it was unconscious when I purchased all this stuff. But I looked at this thing and in the title, it said broken. And this was hanging in my house for 20 years. So I took that thing off the wall. I immediately got in a car and I drove that print to the donation center, and I got rid of it instantly. I just completely got rid of it. And I didn't realize what I was actually putting out into the universe, which is on some conscious level, I thought that I needed to be alone, or that I didn't deserve love on some level, because there weren't family prints that I had purchased. I mean, and I'm talking, I had a big house, and these prints and pictures were all over my house. And it was such an eye-opening experience to me that made me sort of start to really analyze the things that I had purchased. We don't realize that. And what's so interesting now is that I can go into anybody's house and tell who they are just by what's hanging on their walls.
Isn't that
Literally.
interesting?
It's
And
fascinating.
well, and it brings up the question in some people's minds of free will. Are we choosing? But well, the way I look at it is that typically when we say I or me, I'm not aware of my unconscious mind. I'm unconscious of it,
Mm-hmm.
but my unconscious mind is fully conscious of me. So, and I'm both of those. So, um, many times we're making choices that the conscious mind doesn't understand.
Yes.
And a lot of the times, in my personal experience, that a lot of those choices are just like what you just described. And it's the intention of it is to communicate more clearly what's going on in deeper levels of us, because the unconscious mind resides at a deeper level. So the unconscious mind, in my experience, will put things in the story, is what I call it,
Mm-hmm.
that just as you described, has a metaphorical meaning, like a parable.
Mm-hmm.
I once had a friend, well, still have the friend, but a friend once told me, and we were talking about spiritual issues and the things that we pick up on when we're younger, and we don't realize that it affects our speech, the way that we communicate. Our language is completely littered with specific references or whatever, religious talk, religious jargon, or political jargon, whatever that is. And my friend mentions that we drag that around behind us like a little red wagon, and we'll continue to pull that little wagon behind us until we realize that all the things that we're carrying in that little wagon doesn't serve us anymore. So, there's no laws or rules here, but isn't it interesting that you saw this child with a broken wagon, and then you wanted to rid yourself
Mm-hmm.
of that broken wagon? So now that raises this question in my mind: what happened next?
What happened next? You mean, did I replace it with something else?
Well, not the picture, but what happened in Christina's story?
Well, I think that was just an indication of where my consciousness had grown to. That it wasn't, I was not going to be the broken person anymore. That was going to be, that I had healed in many respects. And it also showed I had absolutely no attachment to something that I had for 20 years. So I got rid of that thing as quick as I could. And at that time, that's when I was packing to move. So I didn't replace it, but I was so surprised that I had those things in my home like that without any conscious recognition of what I was saying. And boy, was that an eye-opener.
I've been in sales for probably 25 or better years, and did a lot of sales training with people, actually going out on sales calls. And one of the things that I learned to do a long time ago was to read the room. And I recall being with a young sales guy, and we went into a place, and you kind of you meet somebody, and there's kind of a warm-up period, and you're just telling anecdotal stories or whatever. And I wanted to kick this guy under the table because of some of the things that he said. And you could see in the client's face, he was a little, very subtle, but he was a little taken back by a couple of those things. And this was one of his clients.
Mm.
And so anyway, we left, and he asked me, what I thought of things and so forth. And I said to him, I said, well, it seems like a nice guy. And so then I began to tell this younger salesperson all about his client, personal life, different things. And he looked at me and he said, I thought you didn't know him. And I said, he said, he didn't talk about any of those things
Uh-huh.
uh, during the, during our talk. And I said, oh, it was all over his wall, all over his desk, all around him in the objects and the way things were arranged and things like that was telling a story, and it was telling a story about him. And I said, I was a little surprised that you brought up what you said because it was a little off-color joke or whatever. Well, this gentleman, as I told the young salesman, was very involved in his church, and he was involved specifically with young boys in sports, Boy Scouts, that sort of thing. And I said, I noticed he winced a little bit when you made that little joke. I said, that kind of stepped over some of his values and some of the way he sees things and what's important to him. But it was interesting that this young man, he's like, how do you know this all about this person? Well, bumper stickers. We wear bumper stickers.
We do. They're all over the place. You can walk into anybody's home and know who they are just by what they have in their home, if you're aware and you're conscious of it. Now, I went to an art show once, and I'm walking around looking at this person's photography, and I could tell exactly who this person was just from the portraits that were hanging on the wall. I could read right through it. I knew what he was upset about in life. I knew what his challenges were. Everything just from these paintings that were on the wall.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But first you have to recognize it in your own self. So you can't recognize something in another person that you haven't recognized in yourself.
Well, I want to say something. Some people think this is kind of woo-woo or whatever you want to call it, but to me it makes perfect sense. When we watch television, we're watching a story. And when we listen to the news, we're hearing somebody tell a story. Poetry is a story. Songs tell stories. Then there's skits. Then there's plays. All around us are stories. What is your life experience but a story? Now, when we watch all these other stories, we'll go watch Star Wars, and so it's about this. It's about space and adventure and all this stuff. But then there's these individual characters, and then there's life lessons that we'll pick up from, and there's this clash between dark and light. These themes run through all these stories that we observe on the outside of us. We don't stop and think that our own story, your story, the story of Christina, first off, is very meaningful. If nobody else, to you, but it's very meaningful. And like all these other stories, it's very well crafted. There's plots, storylines. There's all this stuff.
Next? Tell me what's going to happen.
But behind all of that, there are metaphors. Your story speaks to you in a metaphorical language, or I like to say it like a child language. When we're talking to a child, for instance, I remember teaching my children to tie a shoe. And if you don't know that you do things unconsciously, go teach a child to tie a shoe. First off, you have trouble doing it because now you're thinking about it. Before it just unconsciously just comes out.
It's a habit. Right.
But do you remember the story? Was something about a tree and a little bunny, and the bunny jumps around the tree and then So what is that? We're teaching a child to tie its shoe. We're telling a story about a bunny and a tree. There is no bunny. There is no tree. It's a story for tying shoes. So we'll find ourselves up against life challenges. And we're trying to deduce, discern, figure out, to obtain guidance and whatever these seemingly strange or seemingly just completely unimportant things are happening around us. in our story that we're involved in. So if we look at it on the surface, we'll say, oh, look, there's a bunny jumping around a tree. No, this particular chapter in my life that I'm in right now is teaching me to tie shoes. And it's speaking to me. That's what the story's for. A lot of our ancient text, we take this literal interpretation of something that's trying to teach us to tie shoes or trying to teach us this. And the metaphor clearly points to the meaning of the story. You see what I mean? But it's not a literal interpretation.
Right. Right. And I find that to be true. And the universe is always giving us clues. And if we're aware of what's being shown to us, we can actually benefit significantly from it. Because a lot of times we fear. We're in a fear state. What's going to happen? I can't believe this is happening. But we're not understanding at the time why we're going through what we're going through. So some of these things that are being shown to us, if we can just see them, and I mean not see them with the physical eye, but see them in an intuitive sense, where we understand, oh, well, this is what's going on here. We can drop that sense of fear and move forward in our life in a very positive and constructive way. Instead of, if we carry that with us, that fear, that baggage, then that is something that we're going to have, dictating our future. So what we need to do is we need to come to an understanding of what's happening in the right now, in the reality of this moment.
Right. Well, I would imagine that after you got rid of the broken little red wagon or the broken wagon picture, whether you at that moment realized it or not, but following that, you probably, well, in a metaphorical sense, stop dragging a little wagon behind you. Mm-hmm. And the metaphor of that is moved to a higher place of maturity, realizing that a lot of the things that you picked up as a child, from a child's perspective, was childish and not serving you, not serving the community at large. It was small-minded thinking. Mm-hmm. And so after that move, you expanded in your consciousness and your thinking and
oh, absolutely. Yes. But it was amazing when I went through my move, going through each item that I had in my house, which was a lot, and looking at it with a fresh set of eyes. So that whole process was amazing. I got rid of half of my belongings, but going through those belongings and seeing what I had chosen on an unconscious way, in an unconscious way, helped me to realize and let go that I wasn't this person anymore. Like, why did I buy all of this? I don't even know why I have this. This doesn't resonate at all with me anymore. And I was able to get rid of it all. And that was an eye opener. That was an eye opener. So I would invite people to look at what they have hanging on their walls in their home. I mean, take a look at it with fresh eyes. Why did you select this? What did this mean to you when you purchased it? And does this still resonate with you? What is it trying to show you about yourself? Because we mirror back just about everything.
Well, that's right. And you know what? That reminds me of another life experience where my sons and I were helping a relative to move. And this person is very organized and keeps photo albums of all kinds of stuff. Pictures of family and, memories and times. But anyway, there was a lot. I mean, we needed a hand truck to stack up these boxes, full of photo albums. And making a joke, I said, I know exactly what's in all of this. Oh, really? How do you know what all's in there? I said, well, it's the first the first step, the best report card, and made several examples. It's very selective. You selected the best memories. You probably don't have pictures of when one of your children stomped their foot and looked up at you and said, I'm not going to do what you say. Mm-hmm. You don't have pictures of this. You don't have pictures of that. So it's very selective. We choose these particular memories that make us feel good, so forth and so on. But now guess what? Guess what we carry with us? All the other stuff that happened.
Right.
And then if
Good
we
stuff's in a
have,
box.
that's right. And then if we have resentment and unforgiveness and hard feelings, any kind of negative energy associated with that experience, okay, we're carrying that with us, but we don't know it. We don't know that we're carrying it with us. And it's affecting the quality of our thinking, how we feel, the quality of our choices. So then how does consciousness bring that to our attention? Oh, we're triggered. I'll be talking with you, or I'll be interacting with you, and then all of a sudden I'm upset with you. and my reaction to you is greater than what's actually happening in this moment. And if I notice that, and I just take a couple of step backs and realize, okay, I'm being triggered. And if I ask for it, if I ask for clarity, do you know what'll come up? Oh, this reminds me. There was something in the smell, there was something in the taste, there was something in this circumstance that has reminded me of this unresolved issue, this painful thing from my past. If we're not watching that, and most of us aren't, then we'll project all that onto the present situation. I'll lay all that at your feet. I'll just release all this negative energy on you and blame you for, guess what? For helping me.
Right.
And then if I look at what we were talking about, how the story was staged, and look at it metaphorically, guess what I noticed most of the time? That while I was being triggered, I was in a story that metaphorically was pointing back to this thing that I should have left behind, but I didn't. But I'm carrying it around in my little wagon. I should have forgiven that. You know, Christina, that's all we can do is to remember or to notice from any experience that we're carrying with us, this negative. We can go back and look at it and say, this is where I learned this.
Right.
This is where I gained this. This is where I decided this. We have to forgive all the characters in the story.
Right, right. It's so interesting because I remember, and I think it was last season, Dancing with the Stars. I remember watching an episode and they were asked to dance to to remember something from the past and sort of make up a dance and to it. And I think most of the couples pick something negative that happened to them, something traumatic. Somebody died or this happened or that and I just was watching. I thought that was so interesting that they had their whole life they could review and pick something, and most of it was negative, a negative experience that happened. But a lot of them said in their dances, you know, as they were being interviewed as to why they chose the memory that they did, that was a turning point for them in some way, that such and such happening transformed them. But it's just so interesting how we all do this. We all, you know, if you say, tell me something about your childhood, the first thing my brain will go to is a negative experience. It's amazing.
Why do we do that?
Why do we do that? I think on some level, I think there's some sort of internal conflict that happens within every human being. And I think a lot of it is, I think we do that because on some level, we don't feel deserving. So we're almost like self-sabotaging our own, you know, evolutionary progress. Listen, if it was easy for people to evolve, we'd all be there.
That's right.
You know what I mean? We would all already be there. Why would we not? But there's a part of us inside that we have to work through. We have to overcome. And that is this feeling that we're not worthy of it. And so that's what we do. So when somebody asks us something about our past, we'll automatically just go to whatever happened that was so negative.
Well, and that goes back to the story thing, because when you meet someone and you say, well, how have you been? They'll tell you a story. And it's the story of them. And most of the time, if we're honest with ourselves, the story's been edited. It's been condensed for tellability. And then it's been edited usually to where I was right and everybody else was wrong.
Yes.
I was being singled out. It's amazing what we do, and then at the same time walk around convinced that we know exactly what's going on,
Right.
and we know what's going on with everybody else, and really what we're experiencing is what's going on inside of us.
Yes.
At every moment, we're experiencing the quality of our thinking. We're experiencing our reaction. Really, that's the crossroads right there. We react or respond to outer stimuli, moment by moment by moment. And that reaction, whether it's happy or sad, or however that reaction is very energetic, and it's very experiential. And guess what? It's very much under our control.
I mean, I broke down myself when I took that wagon off the wall and saw that it said broken.
Well, and it's I think it's probably good to mention when you said we talk about we saw something, but it was already there. We already saw it, but we didn't see it. We didn't really see it. Do you know what I mean?
Right, because we don't select our artwork consciously.
No, we don't do it. We don't do
most
things consciously.
No, we don't. We'd be shopping at a flea market or antique shop, and something hangs on the wall, and there could be 100 antique paintings right in front of you, but you select one for what reason? You don't know. Oh, I like that, and you just pick it and you buy it and you bring it home, and you're not thinking at all about what is this trying to show you about yourself.
Right.
What is it? It's giving you a message.
Right.
What is it trying to show you? I mean, I had in my living room, I still have it in my basement of my new house, but I had this big, huge, beautiful, antique looking painting. And it was a woman sitting by herself in a garden on this regal chair. I wish I could bring it out. It's a big, big painting. And her hair was in a bun and it was gray and held back. It kind of looked like me with my white hair, sitting in a garden by herself. And this was this big, huge thing in my living room, and was up for years and years and years, just by herself, this regal looking queen person. And I really nixed my husband at the time out of everything. I mean, just that one painting in the bedroom. Other than that, every single one of them. It's amazing. And I think a lot of it then pointed back to my childhood and to things that needed to heal. It was like, you need to go back to the inner child. You know, a lot of what I've had with children and broken children and crying children and children alone. I had so many children prints around my home that it was just like the universe trying to show me, you need to heal the inner child. You need to heal the inner child. And I'm going, oh, I like this. Let me just buy this and put it on my wall. Not having any, like, not realizing at all what this thing is trying to tell me.
Right. Well, and that brings good clarity to the wisdom spoken that says, forgive them, they know not what they do. Now that's a faithful statement, because most of the time we don't know what we're doing, not really, and we don't know why we're doing it. We insist that we do.
Right.
But we don't.
No.
So we're unaware of why we're doing certain things.
We are.
Christina, I always enjoy speaking with you and having our little chats. And I'm glad that you came up with the idea of maybe sharing some of this stuff.
Right. Well, that's true. We should let people know that we spend hours on the phone just talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to kind of make our discussions public, because we would be talking about this anyway.
That's right.
Why not film it? Why not share it? So that way people get the benefit of where we're at, what's going through our minds. And it'll be interesting, because I think the direction of this every week will be something different, and it'll just be what's on our mind. So yeah, it might be life, it might be relationship advice, it might be love, it might be anything. But again, it might also be on current events and what's happening in the world at the time, and what's our perspective, because it is a little bit unique, a little different than what's out there. So I'm excited to share from the heart what I see. And I mean, and a lot of the times it's not what I see with my physical eyes, just by watching a television and regurgitating back what I see. It's what I feel in my heart. It's my own interpretation of what I see, what's going on. So that I'm looking forward to sharing.
Well, good. So we did it. Episode 1, heart to heart. If this makes it through the editing process,
Woohoo!
we have one behind us.
We're on our way.
And hopefully we'll be able to invite some people on with us and just share a conversation that's about love and happiness and just enjoying life together.